I cannot believe that we're doing my March wrap up already. What the heck happened? Where's this year going? So, in the month of March, let's talk about what I read. The first book that I read this month was The Foxwife by Yangzu Chu, and this is a book about shapeshifters, about the trickster archetype, people who turn into foxes. It follows the story of Snow, and Snow is a shapeshifter, and her child was taken from her and killed, and so she's seeking revenge throughout the story. And it starts off, and there's also this detective guy, and there's this woman found who's dressed as a courtesan, aka a prostitute, and she's found in the back doorway of this restaurant. And the people who find her, they move her because it's like bad luck to have a dead body found on the doorway of your restaurant, because it's probably bad for business, right? So they moved her, but then they're worried that if they can't find out the identity of this woman, that she'll become a hungry ghost, forever wandering and haunting the place. So they want the detective to track down who she was and who she is so they can have a ceremony for her. This will interlace with the tricksters, or the fox shapeshifters, because there's also male foxes. Throughout this story, as the detective's going along, where it goes, people are like, it was a fox. It must have been a fox, or like something talking about foxes. So it's woven throughout the story. And then eventually him and Snow's path will cross. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of a neat, interesting story. I liked the lore in it, and it was just a nice and kind of different read. Well, the next thing I read after that was an indie horror, and that was by Izzy Glee, called I Can See Your Lies. So the title, as it says, I Can See Your Lies, the character has a interesting ability where when someone lies, they get like these like black bubbles around their face. So when someone lies to her, she can see their lies, literally. So she's with her husband, who right in the beginning, she's like, this is someone I never should have married, da 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 da. He's really horrible. He treats her like crap. He seems almost violent. And she just kind of is getting to the point where she wants to get out of this relationship, take her daughter, start over, and just get out. And in the beginning, she has this weird like vision. And so on top of being able to see people's lies, she also has visions. And this one she's been having, I guess, for a long time. And like, she sees this vision and she looks at the floor and there's like this big red spot. And it almost looks like maybe it's blood or whatever. But then she's like, okay, breathe in, out, breathe in. And she looks again, it's gone, it's not there. It's like it never existed. And like sometimes she's never had her visions kind of cross into reality. So that kind of freaked her out. And then also, you have her mother had disappeared, and there was a cold case of that she was possibly murdered. Her mother worked in the film industry, and so she still kind of has an obsession with this, with like finding out what happened. And so you have that element going on too. And it's a crazy story. It's a short little novella. It's horror. I love the writing. It was super addictive. I flew through it. I like the whole premise of that, like being able to see the lies, which I don't know if I'd want that ability, to be honest. It'd be weird, right? If you really think about it. Like, at first you're like, oh yeah, I would like to know if people are lying. Then sometimes you're like, oh, maybe not, because everyone freaking lies. Anyway, I digress. After that, I read A Step Past Darkness by Vera Kurian, and that was a random thriller that I kind of just happened across. It's about this mega church, and the pastor might just be a mountain demon. All these kids back in the day, well, I say kids, but they're teenagers, they had this end of the year party in the mine, and they witnessed something really horrible happen that kind of was tied to the church. Then people died, something effed up happened, and they all share this really bad secret. And then one of the group later in life goes back to town, and she ends up dead. And so everyone returns that was in that like group, and they are gonna have to deal with the past that is being dredged up, because they go to the funeral of the girl who had died and they find out that she was murdered, and pretty sure she was murdered by that church. After that one, we read In Ascension by Martin McInnes, and this was on the 2023 Booker long list, and I thought it was fantastic. It's about the ocean. It's about space. It's fiction that reads like nonfiction. It's is it sci-fi? It's on the edge of being sci-fi, but it's also fiction. So it follows the main character, Lay. It follows her growing up and her interest in like microbiology and water and algae and all of that stuff. And it follows her as she, goes and does different scientific research study, going to these mountain lakes and studying the algae that was there, and then ending up on this research boat where they go out and they discover this undiscovered thermal vent that is 3 times deeper than the Mariana Trench, which is kind of like history making. And then they collect a bunch of stuff from there and different archaea and bacteria and stuff from the samples in the water. And then after this job, she makes a connection there where she meets this lady. She meets this lady, and their connections lead her to working for a program for space where she's going to take algae and provide it as a crop and have that crop be a major food source when going into space. So it all kind of ties together. And it's scientific, it's poetic, it's just a fascinating story, and I loved it so much. And I don't always do well with like Booker Prize books because I've read several in the past that I just did not like. But this one I loved. After that one, I read a nonfiction book called Otter Country by Miriam Darlington, and I kind of have a fascination with otters. They're so freaking cute. There's a YouTube channel I watch called Katsumet that has these 2 otters on it, and they're adorable. And then I also watch a Twitch channel that has rescue otters that I can watch for hours and hours as they swim around and do dumb stuff. It's super cute. But what I didn't realize when I read this, obviously they're predators, like, they eat everything, and don't try to approach them in the wild because they might bite your freaking fingers off. They are rascally rascally bastards. I learned quite a bit about them. So it follows this woman's story as she, goes out around her home and area trying to find otters and see them in the wild, and how it's a lot harder than you would think, like finding them and kind of tracking them. Like a lot of it's like looking for their poop to see if there's recent poop. So that, it's like going out if you're in the woods looking for certain animals, tracking them as well. Same kind of thing. So a lot of her time was spent when out looking around for them was looking for their poop, which I never really thought about, but it makes sense, right? Like, that's definitely one way to find them. It was just a really interesting look into it because there was a lot I don't think I realized about them and their habits and all of that. After that, I read Ray Naylor's The Tusks of Extinction, and I was really worried this book was going to be too sad for me because it's about how they bring back woolly mammoths from extinction, how they use the DNA and they kind of weave it back together and create woolly mammoths again, and they have them in this habitat like in Siberia. They keep dying off and they don't remember how to be mammoths. So what they end up doing is they supplant the subconscious of this doctor who she used to be like an elephant conservationist. She was trying to save them from poachers and she was brutally murdered. So they put her consciousness, because she used to live around elephants and like knew all about them and had studied them and also studied mammoths and all that. So if anyone knew how to be a mammoth and help the mammoths be mammoths again, it's gonna be her. So they put the doctor's subconscious into the matriarch of the herd, and she starts guiding them, and it has like how they communicate and their emotions. But then poachers get onto like the place, the reserve where they have them, because these a-holes, hey, let's kill something they just brought back from extinction and make it extinct again. Like, what's wrong with people? Seriously. So I thought it was gonna be really sad, but it's really hopeful. And it was such a really good book. It's a little novella. It's short. It's sweet. There are some violent parts in it, and there are some parts that are pretty disturbing. But overall, it was just a really great, hopeful story with a very unique premise. I liked it quite a bit. Ray Naylor also wrote the book The Mountain and the Sea, which is awesome, and I loved it. It's about, they find this colony of octopus. It seems that they have like a hierarchy and communication system. So they have this scientist come to an island, and she's going to see if she can make contact with the octopuses and learn how to talk to them. And it's awesome. Great book, that as well. So honestly, that author, Ray Naylor, can't wait to see what he does next. I have like both things I've read by him. After that, I read Death Under a Little Sky by Stig Abel. This is a thriller. This guy, he moves to town. His name is Jake, and he's a detective, but he kind of wants to put all that life behind him. He wants to live a quieter life. He just inherited his uncle's property. It's kind of out in the boondocks in the middle of nowhere. And his uncle has this huge library with hundreds of books. So he's going to go and live like a flippin' hermit and just read books. There's no running water. He does have electricity, but there's no Wi-Fi, none of that. And so he goes there and he starts to meet some of the people in the little town area and whatnot. And they have this tradition every year where they go look for this like bag of bones, you know, and I forget what the prize is if you find the bag of bones, but after that everyone meets up, they have a bonfire. It's like the town gets together and it'd be a good opportunity for him to meet everybody. So he teams up with this one woman, Olivia, and they go out and they're looking around and they find the bag of bones. So they bring it back and they give it to the lady that they're supposed to. And he's like, feeling the bag, and he's like, man, this seems really heavy. And he opens it and looks at it and he's like, these are actual human bones. The lady's like, no, those are tree branches. I put them in there earlier. And he's like, no, these are human bones. We're gonna have to see if this was like murder or someone dug these up or what is going on. If there was like a grave desecration. Once he starts like digging into this, the townsfolk do not like it. Everybody's suspicious. This whole old murder gets brought up, an investigation of a possible murder. Maybe not. We don't know. But it's fast paced. It is in a small town, and I enjoyed my time with it. It was quite interesting. It took me a while to figure out who it was that was the bad dude. I think I got it maybe towards like the last 90% of the book. I don't know. Okay, after that one, I read The Haunting of Valkwood by Gwendolyn Kiss. This is my first book by her. It was great. It's a weird haunting. So there's a street called Valkwood Street, and the whole street disappears one day, and everybody in it vanished, except for these three girls who were all friends. They got out. Nobody else did. No one else has been able to enter this area. Well, except for the three girls, but they don't want to go back there. Like, they left that behind. There was no reason to. That's it. That's all. But then fast forward to present day, where they're older now, and one of them did end up going back. She wasn't there for very long, but when she came back, she was not right. Like, that place seemed like it broke her. So the main character, she's kind of down on her luck and doesn't have a whole lot of money. And there's this guy that approaches her. His name is Jack, and he has these grants and fundings, and he wants to study the area of Valkwood. She's like, not gonna do it and doesn't want to, but then he shows her this picture. They had sent in a drone, and the drone didn't last very long, and it didn't really get too many pictures, but one of the pictures he gets is of her house. And so she decides she's gonna go back, and the fact that she kind of needs the money, so she's gonna do it for that. But then she looks at the picture again later, and she sees her sister at the window. So now, even more, she wants to go back and see if she can talk to her sister or whatever, you know? So then she goes in there, and it's like she's the ghost. No one can see her. She can't really touch anything. If a door is closed, she can't open it. She goes in, you know, she goes to her house, and she can't talk to anyone. No one really sees her. And it's really weird. And when she goes in, it's daylight at first, but then all of a sudden at one point it hits nighttime and it's getting all weird in there. And then she leaves because she had a timer set so that she didn't spend too much time, because who knows how it was going to affect her being in there. And then she comes back out, and she was able to touch one thing and take it with her and bring it out. And it's such a weird, just interesting concept for the whole haunting thing, like the whole street disappearing. Who's the ghost? Is she a ghost to them now, even though they're a ghost to her? And it was a really great book. I had a lot of fun with it. I would highly recommend that one if you like weird hauntings. After that, I read An Education at Malice by S.T. Gibson. And I thought this book was okay. It was an enemies to lover, dark academia. I felt like the enemies weren't really enemies. They were classmates that were competitive. So it was like they were really annoyed with each other, and that annoyance lasted like a hot minute. and then you knew they were going to be together. So I felt like there wasn't any anticipation for the relationship. But I thought the story was all right. I still read the whole thing. I thought it was a decent book, but I felt like there were parts too where like a really dangerous character was introduced, but then they got shoved to the background. And like messed up stuff could be happening, but they completely ignored it. And then eventually it was like, okay, we gotta go deal with this horrible character that had popped up. And then they dealt with it, and that was over in like a second. I felt there was a couple missed opportunities there, but it was an okay story overall. After that, finally started the Dark Tower series. I read the Gunslinger. And I know a lot of people have said, like, if you don't like this book, stick it out. The next ones are really good, this, that, and the other. But I liked this book. I liked it a lot. Like, I felt like it's building the story. It's kind of telling you where it's going to go, what the Dark Tower is, who is this man in black that the Gunslinger is pursuing, the different characters he meets along the way, the different, like, the town he goes through, the desert, the weird stuff that happened. It was kind of chill. There was a little bit of action here and there, but I liked it. Like, I thought it's like painting the canvas that is going to be the story. And what else I think is going to be interesting to see, because this series spans like 30 years of Stephen King's writing career, right? So this book, I think, was written in the 80s, and the series will end in like 2003, maybe? I don't know the exact dates, so I apologize if I forgot that was wrong. But yeah, there's a pretty huge time span in this, so we'll see how like the writing evolves and matures as we go along. Gonna start the next book soon. I'm doing like one book a month, so looking forward to getting into that series some more. After that, I read The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. Loved this book. The Book of Doors can take you anywhere. Any door is every door. So that door, like in my door over there, I want to go to Italy, just open the door. I just have to visualize a door in Italy. So I have to have a specific door in Italy that I can see, and then we go through it and we're in Italy. Or Greece, or California, or Canada, you know, wherever you want to go. Some random island in the Philippines, you know, wherever. You have that, and it's really magical, and it's like, oh, what a cool thing. But there are bad people trying to get this book, and they will do anything they can to get it, even murder. But yeah, Book of Doors, absolutely fantastic. Probably going to be in my top 3 non-horror books of the year. And I will have a standalone review for that coming, so look for that in the future. All right, next I read First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston, and this is a thriller. It was one of Reese Witherspoon's book picks. I liked it, and I thought it was decent. Like, I honestly didn't know who the main protagonist guy was. Like, there was this guy, Mr. Smith, who's like sending out Evie Porter on all her missions to like steal information or do this or ruin someone's career or whatever it is they do. Espionage. And I didn't know who he actually was till the very end. I thought halfway through the book that I knew who it was, and then I turned out to be totally wrong. I'm really bad at guessing at these. Or maybe the author was just really good at keep me off the trail. It follows this woman, Evie Porter, and she has her mark, Ryan Sumner. And Ryan has this business where he has like a trucking business that transports stuff, but he also on the side like does like black market transport. So it seems like her job is to possibly have someone take over his business. But then she kind of develops feelings for him, and her boss, it seems like if she doesn't pull off this job, is probably gonna kill her. And so it's a matter of trying to play the game and then still survive, and then trying to find out the actual identity of who Mr. Smith is, or any kind of information that she can use to like stay alive and whatnot. And I don't know what it was, why I didn't like I liked it. Maybe I wanted more show me than tell me, because I feel like a lot of it was just telling you what happened. It was like, oh, blah, 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 this, and this happened. And you didn't really always see it. Maybe that's what. I just thought it was like, okay. It was good. It wasn't bad. It wasn't amazing. It was good. I had no emotional ties to any of the characters. They were okay. It was, yeah, I don't know. That's all I got. So I think out of all of these, I had 2 favorites. One was The Book of Doors, and the other was in Ascension by Martin McGuinness. Those were my 2 favorites. Do you guys have a favorite book you read this month, or books? let me know down in the comments. I would love to hear. Always curious. And if you're a fan of videos where I talk about multiple things I have read or I'm going to get into, the next video coming up will be about that. So stick around, check it out. And if you had fun hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.